Welcome in to House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and as always, joining me is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated, MMQB. Gilbert, how are you doing? Before you answer that, the Rams are finally favorite for the first time this season. They're playing a Raiders squad who's coming off a two-game losing streak. But how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, finally they're the favorites, and I guess in a way the schedule has finally gotten a little easier, but maybe not really because on a short week they get the Vikings at home, and the Vikings are undefeated. But uh, yeah, no, but you get a long break, you get a bye week, and you're finally a favorite. You should be feeling good. Maybe Cooper Cup being back a little bit, but then you remember, oh crap, they went 1-4 before the bye week, so a little
Yeah.
bit of uneven feelings here for the
Yeah, and we'll
Rams.
get into we got a comment already, which we'll get to. We got a lot to
Freaking
get into,
Jorge.
Gilbert. We had 2 weeks off pretty much because of the bye week. So we'll get into previewing this matchup between the Rams and the Las Vegas Raiders. And we got a lot going on. We gotta catch up on we got the latest news and notes, as well as storylines for both teams, keys to the game, and our game predictions. But before we get to our game preview, Gilbert, do you have an engagement question for our viewers and listeners?
Yes, I do. But apparently, Jorge Rodriguez has a new profile picture. So shout
Yes,
out to Jorge there trying to throw me off my game. But that's a
yes,
funny picture of me.
yes.
And yeah, I wonder what I was talking about that day. Maybe I chose the Raiders to make the playoffs, or maybe I chose the Chargers to lose the game. And Jorge's annoyed with me. But yes, for the engagement question is the usual question we've been asking: what are the keys for the Rams to win this game against the Raiders? And again, like Victor mentioned, they are favorites -7. That's a big line there for the
It
Rams.
changed again. I just changed it. It's 6.5, Gilbert.
Okay. That probably tells you that a lot of people are taking the Raiders +7 because that's a big spread for a team that's 1-4. They are in a bye week. They're a little rested. We're gonna talk about all the players coming back, players getting healthy there for the Rams. They are at home. So we'll see. But when I saw that point spread, I'm like, oh, maybe I take the Raiders. But then the Raiders might be waving the white flag after trading Davante Adams. A weird game between two teams that don't have a winning record. So yeah, we'll break it all down here today. But let me know if you are in the comments. Besides Jorge, who's asking is Cooper Cup gonna play? Let us know other comments. But Jorge, we're gonna answer your question in a bit here with the Cooper Cup injury notes. But yeah, anything else you guys want to talk about in terms of how the Rams can win this game, get to 2-4, save the season? Because honestly, this is a must-win game. If you don't beat the lowly Raiders, the struggling Raiders, the Davante Adams Raiders, what the hell are you doing, LA Rams here? So a big time game, a lot of pressure here early in October. It's not a good thing you're talking about must win before Halloween, but that's what happened here. And let me know some keys to the game here for the Rams.
Yeah, and especially coming off a bye, this is when they took off last season. They were 3-6 coming off a bye, and then went on a. I think they went 7-1 to finish the season and make the playoffs at 10-7. So a lot to get into, Gilbert. As we mentioned, we've been off for a couple weeks now. It was good to kind of get out. I went to Oklahoma. We did the post game show from out there. I did so, and then we got a well deserved week off, and now we're back. We're ready to break down this matchup. Let's get to the comments before we move on to news and notes, and they're all from Jorge. So Jorge has a picture of you there. He says Gilberto. So great picture of you. He says I got a new profile picture. So, and then
We got to
he
see your face eventually, Jorge.
I
I don't
know we
I
want
don't
to
know
see
who's
your
who
face.
anymore. Come on, I got to see
Exactly.
my. I have a nice, beautiful face, but who are you, Jorge? Maybe you're
Yes.
Matt, or maybe you're Kay. We don't know.
Yeah. If you didn't catch last night's Four Compas episode on Compas on the Beat, make sure you go and check that out. We had a lot of fun. One of our best shows of the season so far. We had a lot of fun on there. But Jorge Rodriguez says, is Cooper Gut playing? And we'll get right into that because that leads into news and notes, Gilbert. Rams news and notes. Before we get right off the bat, Cooper Cup was out there today practicing, not fully practicing. He went through some workouts, individual workouts. The workouts look really good. He looks like he was doing some routes and he looked really good out there. But Sean McVay said he did caution that um, it doesn't sound like they're gonna give him the goal. Like they're not ready to say he's back against the Raiders. They want to be cautious. They want to see how he reacts to him going through those two workouts on Monday and then today, and then go from there, Gilbert.
Yeah, I think I believe Sean McVay when they're saying, yeah, let's see how it goes and be a little more cautious. Yeah, you're thinking, why not put him on IR if you're going to be this cautious? You had the bye week. What the hell's the holdup? But if you really think about it, you look at the Raiders and you're -7 favorite at home for a reason. Maybe you feel like you could steal one here, but can you really think that way? Stealing one when you're 1-4, and then you have that short turnaround against the Minnesota Vikings. They did catch a break because it's grueling when you go on the road on a short week. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna play a team that good, who might be on a high or maybe on a low from that big showdown against the Detroit Lions, it's starting to set up a little nicely here. But you don't want to overthink it, and then you need Cooper Kupp this week, and he's on the sideline, and you blow it to the Raiders. So it's going to be very intriguing to see what they do. But then again, they've shown some spark offensively with Kyron Williams leading the charge there. But yeah, I think it's too early in the week to figure out what's going to happen with Cooper Kupp. It might come down to a game time decision, to be honest.
Yeah, and to add about what you said about the Vikings, the every time a team has faced the Lions this season, they look bad the week after. We've seen it with the Rams; they look bad against the Cardinals. We've seen it with the Cardinals didn't look good after they faced them. We'll see how the Cowboys look after playing them. They just play a physical type of ball that a lot of teams kind of they struggle to, and you're facing a Vikings team coming off of that on a short week that if you can get a win here, that sets up things really nice for you. But they still have to go out there and play and execute, and hopefully the bye week did them good. Just moving on, Gilbert. I'll keep it short and sweet with the rest of the news. The Rams signed practice squad veteran offensive lineman Jerron Christian to the practice squad, and then they signed wide receiver punt returner Xavier Smith to the active roster, which was honestly it's pretty cool to see. He was on the practice squad for almost a year and a half, so it's pretty cool to see him get that contract and be on the active roster.
Yeah, and real quick, Jorge is commenting again, and he threw me off again because he does have a picture
There we go.
there. Is that me? I cannot tell. Here's
There
my
we go.
mug.
Look at
Okay,
that,
Jorge
Jorge
is
brother.
actually is a human, and
Yeah.
I can't guess anymore because Fernando will call me out, but I think he's a boy. So
Yes.
uh, face reveal, nice picture, Jorge. I love it, and it's funny because in the comments it still has my picture for the first three comments. So we have
Right.
multiple pictures here. So follow Jorge's lead and get comments in the chat here. I know people are low down with the Rams here because they're 1-4, a little
Right.
discouraged, but Jorge's getting the party started here, so we do appreciate that. And then Victor has a cool setup there for Halloween. Let's be more
Yes.
lively here, people. But if you're
Yes.
watching the replay and you're busy, we understand. Comment on the replay chat too as well. But yes, Victor, they're getting more bodies in the offensive line, getting some players like Xavier Smith some opportunities. Definitely cool for the Rams there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I just thought it's well worth it for him. I thought he should have made the 53-man roster, but now because of injuries, I'm just glad that he's on this roster now. And then one last thing, Joe Notebook returned to practice from IR. They opened up his window, 21-day window. He was out there practicing today, so it's looking like they might get one of their linemen back in the fold this week. Just quickly through the injury report, Gilbert, for the Rams. The long snapper Alex Ward, he has with the knee, did not practice, so that's something to kind of monitor. We know what a long snapper can do, especially for
Hmm.
special teams. So that'll be something to kind of keep an eye on. As we talked about, Cooper Kupp with the ankle, he was limited. Jordan Whittington shoulder, he was limited, and then same thing with Joe Noteboom, and a full participant was offensive lineman Logan Bruss with the knee. So good to see this injury report start to shrink more and more as the season continues, especially coming off a bye. And then heading over to the Raiders, Gilbert. I'm just gonna give it's a long list for the Raiders. There's a reason why they're 2-4, and part of it is because they have a lot of dudes injured. So I'm just gonna give you the names of the guys that did not practice today. That is, and that starts with Max Crosby with an ankle, linebacker Tommy Eichenberg with the quad, linebacker Kanai Mauga with an E, wide receiver Jacoby Myers with an ankle, offensive lineman Colton Miller, their left tackle with a knee and shoulder injury, offensive lineman Dylan Parham with the foot, and their defensive tackle John Jenkins and cornerback Jack Jones are both missed practice because of an illness. So anything you're concerned about with the DMPs for the Raiders there?
I guess now. What was Max Crosby again?
Uh, he did not participate, but he
Yeah.
hasn't participated since he missed that one game, and then he ends up playing on. He played against the
Yeah.
Broncos and he played against the Steelers.
Mostly kind of like a rest day precaution kind of routine
Yes,
for Crosby. But yeah, it's a long list, and you never know about these reports on a Wednesday because they tend to change very heavily. I tend not to care until like maybe like Thursday or Friday. If you go 2 days in a row without practicing, then I start getting worried for that player. But as okay, sorry, I thought I saw a home run here. So yeah, Dodgers are playing right now currently.
yes.
But no, like you mentioned, Victor, you know this team very closely. So if that's what it is routinely, that's he's probably going to play this week.
Yeah, I expect him to be there at SoFi. And then that was the last thing with the injury report. We'll move on to Rams and Raiders storylines. But before we do, I want to make sure, since we have a face reveal now of Jorge, he wants to know where Atir is. I think he's probably waiting for the Chargers for What's Up Bolts to come on, and then the other show he joins us for is he joins us for Gilberto's hours. So
Yeah.
he'll be here on he'll be joining us on Thursday for Gilberto's hour after the Thursday night game between the Saints and the Broncos. And we have Daniel Calderon. He says, "Hey y'all,
Hey.
good to see Daniel back on here." So that's awesome to see that. Um, all right, Gilbert. Let's get to Rams and Raiders storylines. And if you want to know more about the Raiders in terms of what happened this week, make sure you check out the Compas on the Beat Lunes Live, and then also the Four Compas. Gilbert got in depth in there. But I guess my question here, just to kind of things off with the Raiders, Gilbert, in terms of their storyline, now that Davante Adams has been traded, he had and I'm here in air quotes, he had a hamstring injury, so he missed the last three games for them. My question to you is: does trading Davante Adams help open things up for Bowers and Myers? Assuming Myers, I'm assuming from what I've heard, everything it sounds like Jacoby Myers is expected to play against the Rams on Sunday.
I guess it could help when you're talking about fantasy football and these guys getting more production, but to open it up, I don't see it because Davante Adams takes a lot of attention. He's the focal point of the offense, so defense has planned to stop him, and that opens it up for Bowers. That opens it up for Jacoby Myers. Now, who's the receiver on this team that's going to scare defenses? Okay, let's go double team that guy. They might not have one. Maybe it could eventually one day be Brock Bauer. He's been a bright spot for this team that's had a lot of negatives or a lot of downsides. He's been very good. And maybe the one good thing for not having a quarterback in the draft this past April was that they got Brock Bowers, and he was probably the best available player, and that's what you got to do when you're facing that situation. But I don't know if it helps out. There's also a quarterback situation there. There's also a lack of running game situation there. There's a lot of bad things there. And when you have Aiden O'Connell, Zamir White, and Bowers and Jacoby Myers, it's not the best. It's that murderer's row for offenses there. So
Yeah,
maybe for the first time that Rams secondary catches a break, they might not give up a deep ball facing this offense here. So, but it's a good opportunity for at least to show that you're able to contain teams that don't have a downfield playmaker like a Jameson Williams, a Marvin Harrison Jr., Jawan Jennings. You guys all know the list there. So maybe for the first time they could do that. But I think losing Davante makes it worse. But obviously, it's more opportunities for the young guys to step up. And maybe the one positive you can have, you spread the ball around instead of trying to focus so much on feeding Davante. But when you have quarterbacks like Aiden O'Connell, who doesn't have much experience, and you want a security blanket, you tend to just to throw it up sometimes. And Davante's so good at that with a sizable catch radius. But again, I think Brock Bowers is emerging as a security blanket, and he's going to be more than that for sure in the NFL. But it's nice to have that at least for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, kind of looking at this team, I know a lot of people are saying, and even Jorge is saying like they're gonna tank, and I'm like, and part of it is like, well, they should sell off some of their players, and like I went down this roster just in preparation for this, Gilbert, and you know, you did a great job detailing why they should, you know, start to kind of tank and, you know, set themselves up to go get that quarterback during the offseason as they should, you know. And also you also mentioned the fact that part of the reason they weren't able to get one was because no one was going to trade any of those top three guys. And so, you know, once they saw that, they kind of pivoted and ended up with one of the best players in Brock Bowers. And 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 they've done a good job. Like most of their roster, Gilbert, is already young, and I I think I think where the misconception is going on right now is the fact that, you know, we both picked the Raiders to make the playoffs, but I think they're already rebuilding, Gilbert. I think that's part of the thing. If you look at this roster, it's one of the youngest in the league already. So they just need to add more talent, as you said, and it's going to happen through the draft. When I see this team, I think I see a lot of what you're seeing from the Rams in terms of, you know, it's a lot of young guys with older players. Like one of the oldest players just got traded, and that was Davante Adams. Outside of that, you know, and one of the other things too that I looked at with the offense is you got a rookie at right tackle, DJ Glaze, who was drafted in the third round. Their second round pick is also in Jackson. Jackson Powers is also starting, and then Brock Bowers. So their top three picks are already, you know, contributing. So I think that's where the misconception, I feel like, with this team is they're already rebuilding. I just think that it just with Davante Adams asking for that trade, it just accelerated the process.
Yeah, I guess in a way you could say that, but I think this team got in trouble by trying to do half in, half out, not going for
Yes,
the full rebuild,
yes,
trying to pretend like you can maybe be a couple players away, like when you're opening up the checkbook for Christian Wilkins, like like what are we doing here? And at the time I was like, you know what, I like this defense, I like what they showed with the DC and Patrick Graham. I like Pierce's background for being defensive minded, and you pair Max Crosby there. Is it Coons, the edge rusher
yeah.
who got
Malcolm
hurt?
Coons, who I mean, he was going to be a big contributor, and he tore his ACL right before the Chargers game. So that was another guy they lost.
Yeah, so I get why you made a splash move like that, but it just felt like the bad thing about and I'm a point blame at Mark Davis, and I've been doing it for a couple of
Yeah.
weeks now, and it's like the bad thing about Mark Davis is like whenever something crappy goes, he just doesn't really fully commit to a fully rebuild. Like I know he's very passionate about pleasing the fans and hearing people in the locker room, and that's cool to be a boss like that. But sometimes you got to fully commit, and like there's just little pieces of other regimes and other coaching staff and other GMs where it kind of makes you think like, hey, maybe we could do it. We have, obviously when they had Derek Carr and Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, you thought, okay, maybe something there. And then you go with the whole Antonio Brown mess. You hire John Gruden, and then you screw that up. But you know what? Josh McDaniels, let's have a splash signing. Davante Adams, let's pair him. And then obviously we know Derek Carr, Davante, Josh McDaniels are not around. So it's kind of like, yeah, let's try to do something here. And uh, that's where teams get in trouble with this kind of half and half out. Like I keep talking about being stuck in mediocre land, and
Hmm.
and there's could be some good and bad. Like you could definitely be a wild card team and not be a real contender. Like look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I guess maybe you take that if you're a Raiders fan. But what is that really going to get you there? They're
Yeah.
they're still stuck with Russell Wilson and Justin
Hmm.
Fields, and they're in a cycle here. Even like the team like the Saints, they're stuck in a cycle there. So wouldn't you rather be what the Washington Commanders are doing, or even the Chicago Bears? Like, oh, you got a franchise quarterback, or
Yep.
CJ Stroud last year. Like, we're getting more younger quarterbacks that tend to, in this league, like you mentioned all the time, Victor, go from last to first, or a team that didn't make the playoffs last year to making the playoffs, and then suddenly your future is bright. And I know we're shifting the talk to Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and finding these quarterbacks. So there are different ways to find a quarterback, but it's just I think with the Raiders they haven't really committed there. So uh, yeah, they are a young team. You start that process. I've even said maybe it's a bit extreme to trade Max Crosby, But it's not a bad thing to accumulate more draft picks. And Antonio Pierce is never going to go for the tank. He's not like that. He's not wired
Yeah,
that way. But if you strip the roster a little bit and you start bringing in draft picks, and he's just is going to play to win, sometimes it kind of just works together. And I want to hear with my little bit
yeah,
of a rant for the Raiders, but yeah, Spark is cool and all, and the fans get excited for 3, 4 weeks. But then when Antonio Pierce comes in and wins a couple games by Aiden O'Connell, you get knocked out of the top 12 for a draft pick. And I'm not saying they really need a Bo Nix, but it would have been nice to get Michael Penix Jr. or JJ
yeah,
McCarthy. He got hurt, but you never on a different team. You never know. You probably weren't going to get the top 3 guys because they were very expensive, and you had to lose a bunch of games there. But it's just you win these games. What are they really doing for you? So find
yeah,
ways to silently tank. But again, it worked out with Brock Barris. You should be commended for that because you started a little bit of this rebuild, like you mentioned, Victor. But we'll see. It's going to be hard to top the Browns and the Patriots and the Jaguars, but you find that top 5 kind of spot, maybe you'll be okay in the draft here. But I just haven't liked the way this team operates, and it's kind of like just pick a lane already. And if they go all in with this fire sale, maybe that's a good thing.
yeah. And we'll see what happens. And just to kind of, I mean, go off the what Jorge is asking here, do you keep AP though? And I think it's going to be hard, Gilbert, for him to keep the job now because Tom Brady's coming in, and from what Mark Davis said, he's going to have him, make some decisions there and help him. So things aren't going to get better for AP there. So this is where there's going to be kind of like a tug of war now between the coaching staff and the front office, because the front office is probably going to want to, they're probably going to want to tank, and as you said, and AP is going to want to win because he wants to keep his job. So that'll be interesting. And just I just wanted to ask you just quickly, if you want, just to kind of finish up with the Raiders here, why hasn't the Raiders defense lived up to the hype, Gilbert?
Yeah, we briefly talked about the injuries there with Coons, and even Christian Wilkins hasn't been playing. And I've been crediting Fernando about this one. Jack Jones is a wild card. If he's on, he's really good. If he's not, he's a head case and he's a problem. And he's been more of the latter this year. So all that, and even a Davante Adams kind of bad cloud. Just injuries and losses piling up, kind of same old feel. Back quarterback play. So you know home run, I think. Yeah, sorry for the
Who hit it?
Dodgers. Kike Hernandez, by the way. So
Nice.
the postseason hero there. Uh, but yeah, so you know, it just hasn't worked out for injuries and different reasons. And one thing that I kept, I'm going to take the L on picking the Raiders to make the playoffs. But I was, to defend myself, I was very excited about the defense. They were pretty lights out last year. I saw them in training camp a couple times. And then once they shifted away from Aiden O'Connell, who I've not been high on, and they went, Minshew? Why not? Minshew won a bunch of games last year, so that's where I got
Right.
suckered in. Damn you, Telesco and AP for picking Minshew, because it was
Yeah.
AOC. I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, and then it's just the thing that I always said. It was like, if this defense has to carry a terrible offense, that gets tiring.
Yeah.
You keep bending, don't break. And sometimes you could go into past Halloween. It wasn't that late for this team. Early on, they got tired of that crap. And even Davante Adams, who I have been critical of, like, I don't know what happens behind the scene, but Davante Adams must have said, "Hey guys, ignore the Netflix doc, ignore the rumors. I'm here. I'm committed. I want to win." So that's part of the reason why you go a little bit, 1 foot in to go be a contender, because you have Davante Adams, and then for him to check out after 4 weeks, we've seen a lot of teams turn around.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were 0-4, 0-5. So that's just a negative energy having to deal with that too. So a lot of things went into play, Victor. But to answer the question, I thought that he was going to be so much better, and they've been a major disappointment.
Yeah, and I mean, for through the first couple games, they were. I mean, they gave the Chargers a game there until in the second half, like you talked about. Like, you can just hold a team for so long before you're on the field for so long that the other team's just gonna break through, and then they held one of the best teams in football, in the Ravens, and people thought, hey, like maybe there's a chance here with this team, but the injuries just crept up, and eventually, we saw the same old Raiders and creep up, and yeah, it I just, like you said, it's going to be a long time for they need to kind of continue their rebuild and prioritize getting a quarterback. But now, Gilbert, let's move on to the
Well, let's
chart.
take a second, Victor, to clap it up for to Jorge Rodriguez, who has a
Oh,
face because
all
he's giving
right.
us his money now. So thank you for that, Jorge. That's a beautiful
Thank
picture,
you.
by the way. Where are
Right.
you in that background
Yeah.
there? You seem like you're a person that likes lavish things and you have a lot of money. So give us more. 9.99. We
No, no, no.
appreciate it.
Alexander Hamilton there. I love that. I love that reference. It's the $10 bill. All right. All right, Gilbert. We as Jorge mentioned earlier too. With Cooper Cup coming back, I guess the question is, will Cooper Cup returning to this game help the Rams offense break out finally? And we've seen what this team can do with Cooper Cup. But my question here more in terms of if he does return in this game against the Raiders, should they kind of avoid having him do some of that dirty work, because it seems like just have him be a guy who runs the routes instead of having to put him out there to block, because that can get him a re-injure. And how much do you need to get out of him the rest of the season, Gilbert?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I think there's actually a good response. Like when you've mentioned it too, Jordan Whittington is capable of doing that, being a good blocker, doing the stuff around the line of scrimmage that Puka Nacua did, Cooper Kupp did, Robert Woods a long time before that did. So yeah, keep this guy healthy and maybe do a little less and just make sure he focuses on getting open quickly. We don't know how the offensive line's going to do, but you get to face Max Crosby, so maybe you want them to do a little better. But they're getting healthier. They're coming off the bye week, so maybe let the offensive linemen do their job. Maybe less kind of eye candy and being tricky at the line of scrimmage, or letting Jordan Whittington do more of that stuff, helping out with the blocking, but and the motions and all that. So just make life easier for Cooper Cup. You have him out there. Uh, you know, maybe give him a try for a quarter, but maybe it's tough because you don't want to rush a guy back too soon. But and again, I kept going back to, like, you don't want to try to pretend like to steal one against a bad team. It could go both ways. It could, maybe this team is ready to check out and wave the white flag after Davante Adams, or AP says, "F that. That guy don't want to be here. We're here to play our butts off. We're here to play for second contracts, this and that. Rah rah rah. He's good at that." So, you don't want to pretend like you're better than this team. So I'm up for Cooper Cup playing if he's able to do 70%, 80%. If you could keep him healthy and get his body acclimated to the speed of the game, I like that idea. Victor, making him do less is more. And you've seen what Jordan Whittington has done. You've
Yeah.
seen what even Tutu Atwell, who I buried to start the season, where I said, yeah, I'm done with him. He's showing some flashes. Even a guy like Xavier Smith, Demarcus Robinson got a touchdown, I think, before the bye week. So there are options to help out here, even though Puka Nacua is not back yet.
Yeah, and even the tight ends, playing better, that would help as well. But I just think the less you put on Cooper Cup, not having him blocking out there, I get it. It's part of your 11 personnel, but I just think you kind of, especially with him coming off the injury, you kind of want to ease things up for him, and I just would have him run more routes instead of having him block out there in front of guys like Tutu Adwell or Jordan Whittington. And as you mentioned, that's why you have him. I mean, he's been great since he's been inserted into the lineup. Jordan Whittington, you see him; he makes great blocks out there. He has he fits the type of guys they like. The kind of stocky receivers that can go out there and block. And so, yeah, just have him do more of that. And it'll be interesting what they do, Gilbert, with Cooper Cup. We'll talk more about it as we go through the season, but you kind of want to see him finish out his career with the Rams, and he might not get a
Yeah,
chance to, depending on
good point.
what happens with the injuries and all that. But I think it does help the offense kind of break out. Especially, he's big in the red zone, so especially if they get down in the red zone in this game against the Raiders, he's going to be a big key for them. And him returning, especially running those routes, I think would help instead of having him out there blocking.
Yeah, I wonder what happens if they do lose to the Raiders and you fall to 1-5, and maybe you don't want to think this way. Maybe in the back of their mind, they're like, you know what? Let's keep him healthy just in case this game doesn't work in our favor, and you want to trade him. A guy who's been that beloved in the locker room and has a lot of respect from Les Snead and and Sean McVay, maybe you talk to him and give him a heads up about trading him, and he says no. You do right by him and you stick it out throughout the season. But a lot of things could definitely change being 1-5. And Mark Cooper was gone after 1-5 for the Browns. I think the Raiders situation is a little different, but the Browns, I guess, when you get to that 1-5 or 5 losses, 6 losses, you start thinking, yeah, we're sellers at the deadline.
Yeah.
And if you want to get younger and rebuild quickly, like the Rams, probably are thinking about starting a new era, maybe that's we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but it's starting to get to that point. Like you get to 1-5,
Yeah.
Cooper Cup might be a guy.
Yeah, and I mean, look, we didn't bring this up. I wasn't going to, but since you brought it up, I mean, even Matthew Stafford was on the Sunday show on Fox. So I mean, they even asked him, "When was the last time you wore a suit?" So that kind of tells you that he's starting to look for his future now, and this might be the last season for Matthew Stafford if he's already making TV appearances because he's already looking at what comes after football. So, I mean, you hate to kind of, we're focused right now on this preview of Game 7 against the Raiders, but you can also, not see the fact that some of these guys, they're getting, older, and some, you got to start making decisions going forward.
Yeah, I know we're getting far ahead, but I looked at the standings real quick and say Stafford is ready to retire, like you mentioned. He's wearing a suit and maybe he just plays this season, whether with the Rams or somebody else. But maybe he welcomes kind of like, hey, let me go to a contender and like a team that really needs a quarterback in the contender mix. Not really contender, but playoff mix is
Right.
Pittsburgh Steelers are the first team that come to mind to me. And other teams are maybe a little too far behind, but will he welcome them, or maybe the Rams are okay taking their lumps and saying Cooper Cup, Matthew Stafford, whatever you want to stay here and kind of
Yeah.
right into the sunset, go ahead and do that too. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. They are
But
capable of beating the
yeah.
Raiders.
Yeah, but the next 2 weeks are very important, Gilbert. I
Hmm.
think to that too. I mean, we have to bring that up. I mean, we can't just be like,
Yeah,
hey, they're coming off a bye, they're going to beat the Raiders, and then they have a favorable matchup in the fact that the Vikings are playing a tough Lions team, and they're gonna, having to play them on a short week, and they can go 2-0 the next 2 weeks. We also have to bring up the fact that if they go in 0-2 and they go to 1-6 at that point, it's
no
time to start
trading.
exactly just like we talked about the Raiders here. Happy Gilmer says he's like high five. Like
What's up,
Jorge
Happy?
says he's asking, would you start Cooper Cup in fantasy lineup this weekend if he plays?
I wouldn't do it. I feel like I
Yeah,
got to see a game first, and
yeah.
yeah, and then I don't know. It is the Raiders, but he hasn't played in a minute, and he can't stay healthy. He could be a guy who comes in and gets hurt easily. But like you mentioned, Victor, to find ways to keep him healthy and safe, why not?
Yeah, I wait another week and make sure he's healthy before you start him. Um, he also says, and yes, my picture may look lavish, but brother, I'm broke as dishes. Full-time student graduating in the spring. I'm on that ramen diet, homie.
Well,
Laugh
we
out loud.
appreciate the money, man. That's
Yeah,
even better. I know you're
yeah.
making sacrifices, so we really
Yeah.
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah. And then Angel, what's up, Mike boys? Hey, good to have you, Angel.
What's up, Angel?
Power Slice Pizza says
Oh,
Raiders fan here. Both teams are gonna need a future quarterback. I believe in
yeah.
the next draft. Has a lot of offensive weapons, and I would agree with that.
Mm,
Both teams, I think a lot of people thought that both the Raiders and the Rams were gonna draft quarterbacks in this past draft, but when
yeah.
six go in the top 12, I mean it's kind of hard to see what happens there. He also says Raiders have so many injuries, and then Angel says the Raiders are drafting Sanders. We'll see. We kind of talked about it, and then Power Slice Pizza said I did see him and Brady have connections, and I think he's talking about Sanders. So we'll
Wow.
see what happens there with both of those teams in terms of their quarterback situations going forward, Gilbert.
Don't forget about Shiloh, Angel says.
Don't forget about
If you
Shiloh.
need a safety that can't
Yeah,
tackle,
yeah, they
go ahead
can't
and take him.
tackle. Man, he missed like 10 tackles. I saw that clip where it's like, yeah. Delver says, "Hola compas, just signing on Puro Cuernos, just run the division." Hey,
Hey,
always
what's up,
love
Delver?
hearing from you,
Yeah,
Delver. Thanks for checking in.
yeah.
All right,
He heard us talking about tanking and maybe and trading people. He's like, "No, I'm coming in for positivity."
yes,
Delver always has
let's go. That's what we want to hear. All right, Gilbert. So just kind of switching over to the defense here. Will the bye week kind of help fix the issues that we've seen with the Rams defense there?
Yeah, I could definitely help, but like I mentioned earlier, maybe also the opponent, not a very explosive offense. You're facing Aiden O'Connell, who he showed some flashes last year of being a capable starter every now and then. Like I think he's a very good, high end, emergency quarterback or backup quarterback. He could maybe help you out for a month or so. Obviously, not to build a franchise, but he could definitely hurt you. And you know, I want to say this Raiders team's going to have a lot of pride because that's who their coach is, and Antonio Pierce, and he's going to remind them, look at what we did last year with AOC, and everybody counted us out, and you beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day. That was the last time they lost. You beat down the Chargers. So all these talks from last year. Maybe you don't want to look too far back, but uh, I could definitely see this team getting up for this game here. And if they're that motivated and that eager to show and fight, then Rams defense better be ready because you haven't shown much this season. And Chris Shula's first year without Aaron Donald. So if there's any game where you could flex your muscles and show off that you've gotten better, this is a game. If you don't do that, it could be a very long season for this defense here.
Yeah, and part of the things that I have been really impressed, or not impressed, but happy to see from this team, was that defensive line. We said, well, what's going to happen without Aaron Donald? The defensive line hasn't been the problem, and the thing we thought would be better would be the secondary, and that has not been good. And so you kind of want to see that, and then the linebackers, Gilbert, just
Oof.
and I think I want to see I saw that we might see Omar Spates in this game. If that's the case, then things can look better. But man, those linebackers have not been good. Troy Reader, it just hasn't worked out, and maybe having those 2 weeks to kind of get Omar Spates involved, I think would be a big thing. So I think things can, you can fix some of the issues going forward now. I did like Darius Williams and him playing last week. I thought really helped. Uh, but we'll see. And it was, one thing we didn't talk about, Gilbert, was the fact that Tre'Davious White was inactive for that game, and it sounds
Yeah.
like he was very positive about it, which for a veteran guy like that, we can, things can go, the other way. But he's shown to be a leader by doing that, and we'll see if he's out there against the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who they played the Packers. I think for the most part they play a little better against the Packers, and we saw what the Packers did to the Cardinals. So maybe that's more of the same where he's not playing. You don't want him to hurt you. Maybe you showed better improvements in practices. We don't know, but one thing that maybe we're overlooking a little bit in this preview is Sean McVay getting a bye week, getting a
Yeah.
week to reset and reassess, and what can you do differently. Time slowed down for him to kind of use that brain of his and figure out things. So I would not be surprised if he finds where to kind of finds things to tinker and maybe help out a little more defensively to help out Chris Shula too.
Yeah, and I'm sure that having that extra time to kind of prepare for this week is going to be very valuable, especially going up against the Raiders here, who they're favored to win. So we'll see how that goes defensively. I'm going to keep an eye on this defense. I want to see what if they improve from what we've seen the first couple of weeks. One look here, we got one more comment here from Angel before we move on. Gilbert, he says, "Do you guys think the Raiders trade Max Crosby?"
Well, Mark Davis told Vic Tafer no. I guess don't believe it. So I think if he says that on the record, I'm gonna believe him. So I don't think so. But obviously, I think they should trade a lot of players, maybe like a Jacoby Myers even. But
Yeah.
Max Crosby maybe one you should hold on to because he's still in his prime. Even the contract is not too wild out there. It's not gonna be like a Nick Bosa or Miles Garrett or even Michael Parsons. But I'm gonna say no right now.
Yeah, especially with edge rushers like at that age, it's kind of hard for the you don't get him. And I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's hard to say if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, we'll give you 3 first round picks." It's hard
You
to
have to. I doubt to get
yeah,
that offer, but
yeah, I
you
know, but you never know, man. And if the right offer comes around, I just don't see Tom Telesco saying no. It's kind of hard. And then he says Antonio definitely gone after this season. Max would be a high cost. So Walker trade by or
Herschel
Herschel
Walker. Yeah.
Walker. Yep, it would. I mean, we saw what
Maybe
Mac
maybe 2
got.
firsts, but even
Yeah,
that sounds a little too high to me.
yeah, Khalil Mack got 2 first round picks, so we'll see. All right, Gilbert. Rams and Raiders players matchups to watch. Gilbert, where are you starting off?
Uh, did I go Cooper Cup on here? I think I did. Even though I'm not sure he's gonna play, but
Yeah,
I'm really hoping he plays, and I want to see him go against this Raiders defense. Like we mentioned, a little bit of disappointment. And Jack Jones, I'm not even sure. I think I saw illness, or you mentioned illness, but
yeah,
uh, he's going to be out there. Other guys are going to be out there. So if if you're able to incorporate Cooper Cup, and maybe it's all like mind games and he's ready to go, and Sean McVay knows it. I want to see, even if it's not him, I'm going to just throw in wide receivers against the secondary here. Jack Jones, like, where are you mentally? Where's the rest of the secondary at mentally after the
Ja'Cory and Bennett. You got Trayvon Merrick. You got well, they lost Marcus Epps to an ACL, but
yeah
they
another
have
injury?
yeah.
So I just want to see like this Jordan Whittington guys, Tutu Atwell, maybe Cooper Cup. How do you do against the secondary? And is it going to be the secondary that we saw last year? If not, Rams, you better take advantage of that, and maybe you get some more explosive in this game here.
Yeah, and I like that because especially if Cooper Cup plays, I think it it makes life a lot harder for the Raiders to and in defensive coordinator Patrick Graham to kind of set things up. Without Cooper Cup, we've seen how they can go after this offense of the Rams, and it just the part of the problem is too, Gilbert, is that Matthew Stafford doesn't have a lot of guys to go to that he trusts. He's a guy,
Yeah.
kind of like what we hear from Aaron Rodgers with the whole Davante Adams and Alan Lazard. Like he has to trust dudes. I think that's where Matthew Stafford is, and I don't think he has a full trust of some of the other guys that he has right now. And I think with Cooper Cup, we know he's gonna feed him if he's back. So I like that player matchup for me. Gilbert is the Rams secondary against Brock versus Brock Bowers. We've talked about it for ad nauseum now with the Rams secondary, and they tend to give up big plays. What happened against the Packers? Tucker Kraft went off the tight end, and so and Brock Bowers is lived up to all the hype, man. I think he's in terms of catches and yards, he's only behind what was his name? I forget the name from the Philadelphia Eagles, but
Oh, Crowder.
from back in the day, Jackson. Yeah. So in terms of his first 6 games,
Oh,
yeah, he's right up there. So he's making history. He's getting the targets now with Davante Adams gone. You got to put 2 guys on Brock Bowers here and not let him beat you, because especially if Myers, if you can lock up Myers and Bowers, you pretty much can shut down this Raiders offense. There's not a lot here to kind of worry about if you're the Rams defense, but you cannot let another guy kind of beat you deep like we saw with Tucker Kraft, Gilbert.
yeah. Honestly, Brock Bowers gives this team more incentive to trade veteran guys, because obviously when you strip a team and you go get a quarterback, you don't want to be like Drake May and the Patriots, like, ah, crap, this guy's gonna really struggle here.
Yeah.
So when you have a receiver that good, I think Brock Bowers is showing that he's gonna be a blue chip player, a cornerstone piece for a very long time. And yeah, again, when you got torched by Tucker Kraft, like you mentioned, and a bunch of other receivers, you better be on it, Ram secondary. And if if this team goes off on you, it's gonna be a long year, because it's gonna be something's gonna happen every single week.
Yeah, and just avoid the explosive play, man. I mean, it's just been every game there's an explosive play against this secondary, and I think if you can lock up Brock Bowers, it goes a long way for you to win this game. All right, Gilbert. Moving on to Rams and Raiders keys to the game. Where do you want to start?
Yeah, I mentioned about this team maybe waving the white flag or maybe playing with a lot of fight because you are being coached by Antonio Pierce. Maybe don't give this team the option because there is still that element of like, hey, is the season over? That's still somewhere in the back of their mind because you just traded your best your best offensive player. So if you're able to jump out on a 10-point lead early, or maybe you get two touchdowns on the first two possessions and it's 14-0 with 6 minutes to go in the first quarter, this Raiders team might check out because whatever people say they're being positive, that's still somewhere back in their mind because they are 2-4. You trade your best player. It's a mess all over again with the same franchise over and over again. That's going to go to the forefront of the mind if they fall behind. So find a way to jump early, and then that way you could start preparing about this Thursday night game. One of the things I remember from covering the NFL, every time a team had a Sunday game before a Thursday game, they start you're already getting iced up while they're talking to the media. They're doing their stretches, they're doing all their routines that they do
Yeah.
on a Wednesday because it's such a short week that they want to start preparing. So if you can mentally prepare early for that Thursday game for the Vikings, do that by jumping on this team early that kind of maybe wants to check out already. So that's gonna be a big key to the game. If not, you keep it close and maybe the Raiders steal one because they also have the coach in AP who wants you to fight.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Gilbert, is that you're always, everybody's picking the Raiders, and I mean the Rams, sorry, in this game, and everybody's like, yeah, they're giving up, and it's still early in the season where we've seen the trend. I mean, it didn't happen last week for some reason, but we've seen the trend most of this season so far is, a lot of these underdogs have been able to pull up offsets. So and nothing is given here, man. You have to go out there and earn it. And we've seen the Rams, we haven't seen them play 4 quarters, like be able to just, push a team around for a while now, Gilbert. It's been since last season. It's time if they're gonna
Mhm.
make a run, they need to do that, and it starts with what you just said. And I'm with you. For me, Gilbert, is run the ball. Like this Raiders defense, they struggle against the run. That's one other thing. They've given up over 100 yards, I think, in every game except for against the Browns. And so Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, get them involved, run the ball. We've seen how well they've done. That's one of the things when they go away from it, that's when they get in trouble, Gilbert. You need to punish this Raiders defense. Also control the clock. That also is going to help you be able to win this game because that's what a lot of these teams have been doing. The Steelers, the Broncos, and yes, I get it. The Steelers and the Broncos have better defense than the Rams, but that's how you kind of uh, you kind of take advantage of this defense is by running the ball, and that's how you should be able to win, and you should be able to win handily if you take care of those things, Gilbert.
Yeah, a lot of teams are winning. The teams that are winning a lot are the ones that are able to run the football. Like even a team like the Texans that struggled without Joe Mixon, the second Joe Mixon comes back, they get 41 points. Obviously, the
Hmm.
Ravens are in first place, but and we think more about of them being high scoring, but they're still getting 200 yards rushing per game. Obviously the Chiefs are better with Pacheco, so if you're able to do that and punish the Raiders, even the Bills on Monday Night Football, they're running the football all over the Jets, right? And the Jets vice versa too with Brees Hall. But uh,
Yep.
maybe you find a way to get Blake Crum involved too. We saw a little bit of small flashes of
Yeah,
that.
5 carries for 25 yards.
Yeah, and we've been praising Rodney Rivers. Maybe he does a little more. If you get three guys involved and you start controlling the time of possession, that will definitely make life easier for the Rams here.
Yeah, and then you have Kyron Williams finally go over 100 yards. So that was good to see as well. And you've been able to run the ball now. That's what you wanted to do now. You wanted to be a bit more, heavy run team, and you've been able to do it. Now you just got to commit to it for the majority of this game, and you should be able to win this game if you do that. All right, Gilbert, our betting spotlight is the Rams are, as we mentioned, it's been going back and forth between 6.5 and 7, and went back down to 6.5. So there's first time this season that the Rams are favorites. They're 6.5 point favorites. The over under is 43.5. What's the right side of this line, Gilbert?
Yeah, like you mentioned, it was a rough day for the dogs last week. I think only one upset won. The Colts beat the Titans, and then 12-2, the favorites went against the spread. So there's track record of the the favorites being able to cover lines this big. But that's mostly, I think, good teams and bad teams playing each other. I don't know how far apart the Raiders and the Rams are. They seem like they're a little closer to each other. But so if it was 7, I would have taken the Raiders plus 7. But because it went down to 6.5, I don't feel good about it. But I'll take the Rams here, being at home, coming off a bye week, needing this game a little more. I don't know where the Raiders are. I don't think they really care about this game. So all those factors, you know what? It can still be a close game, but I could see them, covering here. It's a tough one, but I'm just starting to maybe consider bigger lines now. Now that we shifted from uh, a lot of upsets. Offenses are in rhythm because they how they missed out on the preseason. Now they get their 5 games. The bad teams and the good teams are separating each other. That's not the case here because I don't know where the Rams are. They're not a good team. But I think being at home and having a bye week could go a long way here.
Yeah, I think kind of, what worries me about this line for the Rams is one, it's going to be a Raiders home game, even though it's SoFi.
Yeah.
Number two is they're coming off a bye. How much rust is there going to be? Are they going to be able to go full throttle here? I think those are my two worries in terms of this line. I think the Rams still win this game, but that's a big number, and I get it. Like the I think a lot of people are looking at the fact that the Raiders traded Davante Adams, and that moved the line because I think it was at 4.5 or 3.5 before the Adams trade. So it moved this line up about 3 points, Gilbert, and I think I'm more. I don't like this line at all for the Rams here. If it would have been 3.5 or 4.5, I would have liked it for the Rams. It's kind of tough, especially when as you said, we don't know. These two teams might be evenly matched. We just going off of what everybody the outside knows, we're thinking, okay, this is going to be a blowout. The Rams are gonna should handle things and they'll be able to breeze here. But I'm kind of like I would take the Raiders in terms of the points here, just because of what you just said, and I take the under here, just because I don't know if the both teams can score a lot of points yet. I want to see what this offense looks like with Cooper Kupp before I say, okay, this offense is back for the Rams.
Yeah, no, we're gonna make our prediction now, so I'm gonna
Yeah,
disagree on both fronts here.
yeah,
Uh, I just feel like it's gonna be a wacky game, and
okay,
I'm gonna go high scoring, and I'm gonna take the Raiders 31-20. Sorry, I'm gonna take the Rams
okay,
31-24. Give me the Rams to cover barely, 31-24, and I think the Rams being at home and maybe Cooper Cup comes. I don't know, but I think they'll put up points here, and I think even the Raiders will put up points because this Rams defense is not good. Maybe they come out strong. We saw some flashes of Aiden O'Connell doing some work in December last year. So like again, I don't know where the levels are to the Rams and the Raiders, but it's saying more. It's more two bad teams than one good team and one bad team. So if they're going to be evenly matched, it could be a fun game where a bunch of
yeah.
chaos happens and maybe some turnovers and different lead changes. So I'm not saying I feel confident, but sometimes there's a wacky game. Like look at that Buccaneers Saints game. What the
Oh
hell was
yeah,
it? 51-28. It was even like it was like 27.
that second
27.
quarter. I mean, I watched that whole second quarter. I was like, what is going
Yeah,
on here?
and the Saints went into halftime leading that game, and then it became 51-27. So
Yeah.
there's always like a wacky game. I think it's gonna be this one. So I'm gonna go 31-24.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on this on your prediction. I'll give you two more things here, Gilbert. The Raiders don't play great at SoFi. They're
Yeah.
they're 1-5. Their lone win was when no fans were there in 2020.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and the last time the Raiders played the Rams at SoFi, that was
Mhm.
the Baker Mayfield game, and they came back and won, and they were supposed to win that game, and they did. And the Rams beat the Raiders with a quarterback that just had shown up 2 days earlier. So that's part of the problem too. I feel bad for a lot of Raider fans who are going to show up just because it's been a house of horrors for the Raiders at SoFi. So I'm with you. I think I just think it's going to be a closer game. I like the wackiness part of it. I can see that just because of these two teams, and we don't know which defense is going to show up in this game, but I say the Rams win 25-22. It's going to be like a wacky score too. And then yeah, I just I just I don't have any faith in either of these teams, but I just think with the Rams, as you said, being at home and knowing how the Raiders have performed at SoFi, I'm going with the Rams here.
Well, the only thing is, I thought you went under, and I think that will get you over. Is it?
Oh,
Yeah, 20.
so 22-19, does that work?
Oh,
22-19.
yeah, yeah. There you go. I
Let's
think
go
yeah, yeah. Okay,
22-19.
yeah. And
Like
then
a 3-point game.
I want to say, what was it? We had scoregami last year. I mean, sorry, last week with the Cowboys and the Lions, 47-9. So you don't see a lot many 25s. Maybe we're trying to get a scoregami in there, Victor.
Yeah, maybe a 22-19. I'm sure it's happened before.
Yeah,
But
something. Yeah,
yeah,
something.
Gilbert, so good show. Good to be back previewing. Shout out to everybody who was in the comments. Love we finally got to see what Jorge Rodriguez looks like. That was awesome. Shout out to Power Slice Pizza,
Yeah.
Angel Salcedo, Delbert who checked in and then bounced out, which awesome. And then Jorge again, thanks for the $10 here of the 9.99. Awesome. Um, Shab said, sorry, I forgot about this one. Says, please, Vegas trade Crosby to Detroit. So awesome to see our guy Shab.
It's a good fit
Uh,
there.
yeah, and Daniel Calderon as well. We love hearing from Daniel all the time. He likes joining on, and then awesome from says Power Slice Pizza says great chat, dudes. Take care. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We love. We have guys here. We have people on here from from the Rams, the Raiders, the Chargers, and then one more question here before we leave. Gilbert from Angel says not a Rams or Raider question, but Gilberto, do you know if Jordan Mason is out for fantasy?
I think it's a little too early in the week. He got hurt on that Thursday night football game, so they're probably gonna go all the way into the end to give this guy a rest. So, way too early. Check in Thursday tomorrow for Gilberto's hour. A nice promo there for myself and Victor after Thursday night football, which oof,
Yeah.
Broncos and the Saints. Hopefully that game was done early, and
Yeah,
then we'll
especially
discuss
with
that
no
more.
receivers for the Saints. One more here, from Power Slice Pizza. Sorry, I forgot this one. Good discussion. Hope it's a good game. No injuries for either team. When Baker came to the Rams for that Thursday night game, smash all hope for Raiders. Car Devontae and Josh
McDaniels.
McDaniel, something like that.
Okay.
And then Delver, last one here before we go. Gilbert, Cardi for the win. Is AP job in jeopardy? I would say with Tom Brady coming in as a partial owner, I think it is. He needs to win games
Yeah.
down the stretch. I just don't see them trying to tank if it's up to him. But yes,
Yeah.
I think his job is in jeopardy, especially with Tom Brady becoming a partial owner now of the Raiders.
That would be 3 coaches fired in like 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gruden, McDaniels, and
Jones.
Pierce. But yeah,
Yep.
we'll see.
We'll see what happens. But Gilbert, another good episode. Yeah, we got through everything here, and then we both picked the Rams to win this game,
Yeah, that's
which
usually
hasn't been a good
yeah,
thing,
not a
Gilbert.
good thing. So, but at least we're a little different on the
Yeah,
spread and on
yeah,
the total. So maybe that's enough to kind of get the juju away from the Rams here. But yeah, it's
yeah.
we'll see. It's been a long time since the Rams played football, so we'll see how they go. Shout out to you, Angel. Appreciate all the support, always being on. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that, Gilbert. So that's all I have for you today. That we're ready. We'll be back post game show as we always do to wrap up this matchup on Sunday right around 4:45 whenever Gilbert is done with this story, and then we'll join you guys for that for the post game show, and hopefully it's a Rams win.
Yeah, let's get out of here. Great show. Thank you everybody for jumping in the comments, but it's time to get going. Let's get to week 7. Try to enjoy Thursday night football. Hopefully you're enjoying the Dodgers if you're rooting for them tonight. And then we'll check back in on Sunday, like Victor mentioned, for a recap here. But let's get going to week 7. On that note, ya nos vamos. Pues, vámonos.